Generational wealth isn't just money. If you teach your kids how to think about money, that's generational wealth to me. There's a lot of different ways to structure your retirement. You can have a retirement that's based around your ideal lifestyle.
I'm trying to put things in place so I just won't have a care. Any wealthy person have taken risks, especially a first generation. You have to.
What would you say is your number one concern going into retirement? What's your job title and how long have you been doing that role?
35 years. Job title is Senior Public Health Advisor.
Okay.
CDC.
For agency, CDC?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You've been in CDC the whole time?
Yes.
Wow. So from day one, day one as a federal employee, you were at CDC?
Correct.
Wow. That's impressive. You rarely see that, especially in the DMV. You don't see that much.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear.
And then, so what does your day-to-day work look like?
So there's a lot of diversity that goes on. So I'm not just a senior public health advisor, but because I'm savvy in partnership, do a lot of partnership work. Because of my faith, I'm a Christian, so I'm on the executive board of the CDC Christian Fellowship, which I helped found in 2 weeks before 9/11.
Wow.
Timely, very timely. A lot of praying going on. And then there are a number of projects that would just pop up. Early in my career, I wanted to merge my faith with public health. So they allowed me to do that.
Wow.
So my project officer type work with all the different public health departments in different states, specifically Mississippi, we created a faith-based partnership with them to help us serve the community and help the community to know that lead was still a problem, childhood lead poisoning. So I created a project that is now a program in a lot of these public health departments. So what I do now is actually work in surveillance and data. So we want to make sure that there's no 62-year-old men walking around 12 months pregnant. We don't want to make sure that the data, want to make sure that we have good, clean data. So I'm over a team that ensures that we track and do great data cleaning and what have you.
No, that's powerful to know that, one, that you're doing faith-based stuff, because I'm sure that gives you a lot of purpose.
It does.
You know what I mean? So that, 'cause a lot of people, sometimes they don't like their job, right?
Right.
But what I love about what you did is you created a job within a job that matches your purpose in life.
Absolutely.
And then the impact that has on you is crazy, and on the world, right?
Yes,
So that's one of the things that I always say when it comes to my mission and what we do at Fed Legacy is how can we help our community create more entrepreneurs through building wealth, right? And why entrepreneurship? Because entrepreneurship solves problems of the community.
Absolutely.
Right. And so what you've done within your 9 to 5 is create an entrepreneurial experience.
Yes.
Which is creating the faith-based board.
Yes.
And to me, that's entrepreneurship at the highest level, and you're solving problems in your community. Which now leads me to, what would you say matters most to you in your life right now?
Well, as you know, I had a baby late in life. Had a baby when I was 45. So I'm 60 now, and he is the absolute most important thing to me in the world. And I want to make sure he has a lot of advantages that I put in place for him. I mean, I'm going to be running things from the grave. Trust me. And
that's legacy.
Yeah. And he loves that. He absolutely loves that. One, he doesn't see that among any of his friends. And I just tell him it's because I'm an older parent. Most of his friends' parents are young enough to be my children.
Gotcha.
So I love that he doesn't push against what I'm trying to do to make sure he's in a much better position than anyone he knows, and in a much better position than his father was as an adult.
Wow. And this is why I love working with federal employees, because within our community, federal employees make up a big part of that middle class, right? At scale, right? There's a whole lot of us in that space making good money, and we're able, and it affords us to be able to give opportunities like what you're talking about with your son. And that's part of our mission, is to make sure that we take that middle class money that we're making and we put it to good use, so that when your son becomes an adult, he can 10x that, right?
Absolutely.
And create generational wealth. So speaking about that, I know you mentioned to me about what your son is working on now, right? And then how you amplify that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So he thought most of his life that he wanted to be a focused doctor that's focused on, sports medicine. Sports medicine. However, as he's gotten older, he has discovered that he cannot take the blood.
Yeah.
So what he wants to do now is be a doctor of physical therapy and partner with sports medicine doctors.
Gotcha.
So I'm really excited about that because he absolutely loves the anatomy and how to help folks feel better. Even now, he will go look it up and how to, make sure the muscles are being massaged correctly and make sure, the timing of the ice baths are correct and what ointment works versus does not, and try to encourage people not to take drugs, try the natural way first. And he's only 16. Yeah. So I'm excited about the fact that no one can deter him. I don't know if I mentioned to you, but maybe about a month ago, I went with the high school students downtown to do a mock trial.
Yeah, wow.
For those who we were hoping might want to be an attorney. Yeah. So I was the judge. I was Judge Glass for a day. But my son, that's not what I want to do. I don't even want to know anything about it. I want to stay focused on what I know I want to do and what I love. Okay. So that's that story.
Okay. Awesome. I'd love to see that, what you're doing for your son. Now let's bring it to you a little bit, right? What is your retirement goal? What do you want retirement to look like for you?
Well, I do want to own a couple more houses. And I want the liquid income to be seamless, sweatless. And I want my son to continue to see that type thing. Like there was a time, I let my tenants pay electronically now, but there was a time when I used to go and pick up the rent on purpose because I wanted my son to knock on the door. Yeah. Hello, my name is Joshua. I'm Miss Rose Glass' son. I'm here to pick up the rent. Yeah. And they would do this to me. Young black boy, 10, 11, 12 years old, going to pick up the rent. And then I would use that money to take him directly to get whatever you want to purchase. I wanted to show him that it's that money that's buying your tennis shoes. Yeah. It's that money that's getting that expensive haircut, 10 years old, $35 to get your haircut. Yeah. That's just crazy to me. But I wanted him to actually see how it is that he can pretty much ask me for anything. And he has everything, so he don't ask me for much. But, I have enjoyed him seeing that there's a reason why he has, so much. Also, he has so much because he's a good kid. He does his homework. He cleans his room. He just does everything he's supposed to do. Right. Doesn't give me any heartburn at all. Yeah. But I'm a kind of a strict parent too. Yeah. So, I want my retirement to, I'm trying to put things in place so I just won't have a care. Yeah. And work if I want to. I'm the type of person that just can't sit, so I'll have to do something. I don't know what, but, outside of continuing to try to get as many properties as I can. Yeah.
So your path in retirement is real estate, right? Yes. Real estate, and then also, being honest, investing in your children.
Exactly.
Right. I got clients now who they've taken that route of investing in their children. I got one client, they invested a couple $100,000 from their TSP into their daughter's business, and now their daughter's business is now worth over $10 million.
That is excellent.
Right, and it's two federal employees, right? Married couple. Excellent. Yeah, they took some of their money, invested in their kid, $10 million.
That is amazing.
Both of them retired in their 50s, right? Because of the investment they made in their kids. So it's possible, that's right? Amazing. There's a lot of different ways to structure your retirement, right? And one, you got to raise a good kid, to be able to do that with the resources, and they did, right? And now they're both living a great life, right? And so
it's amazing.
So that's one option, right? And so because if at Legacy, we truly believe in legacy, right? And there's a lot of ways to build that legacy. It's not just living check to check, working all. You don't have to do that. It doesn't have to be that way, right?
Yes.
You can have a retirement that's based around your ideal lifestyle, right? And that's what it seems like you're doing now. Now with building all that, there can be problems, right? So for you, what would you say is your number one concern, right, that you faced going into retirement?
So I didn't expect to be divorced, to be honest with you. Yeah. And so now that has happened, it kind of threw a monkey wrench into a number of things that I thought that would be pretty solid. Yeah. So I've had a challenge in that I've taken quite a bit of money out prematurely.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to play catch up now.
Yeah.
So you're encouraging me to allow 7% off the top.
Yeah.
And you didn't encourage me. You kind of like, do it while I'm on the phone.
Yeah.
And I did. And I'm so glad that you did it that way.
Yeah.
Because you said, you're not going to miss it. And I thought to myself, that's like over $700 a month. I'm going to miss it. But I haven't.
Yeah.
I really and truly have not missed it.
Yeah.
So when this top of the year starts, I'm on whatever that percentage is, I'm just going to add that to it because I'm not used to it anyway.
Okay.
And that's going to help. But the challenge has been taking lump sums of money out. I wish I had to rethink what to do.
Yeah.
You know, because now I've messed up the lump sum that I had.
And so that brings me to this, right? You said we helped you a lot, right? What made you reach out to Fed Legacy? Let's start there.
I'll tell you, your YouTubes and your explanation of different things. If I had met you in 1980, was it 89 when I started? Somewhere in there. I would be wealthy by now.
Yeah.
I didn't even pay the TSP any attention other than just a little small percentage that, I was putting in there. But I didn't know that I was sitting on a gold mine of an opportunity. Yeah. Especially with the matching,
And then what made you listen to us though? Because I mean, I'm sure you had all types of retirement sessions where they tell you what to do. But what was it about our approach that
No. Yours was practical. Half of the webinars that I've been to put me to sleep. I mean, stuff was just over my head. Sure. The different pockets was just as clear as mud. Yeah. Whereas, like what I was talking to you before we started taping about, you did a video on the ABCs of Fegley. Yeah. Simple. I don't think you took, 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. Yeah. And you thoroughly explained the A, B, and C of Fegley. Yeah. And I said, oh my God, I'm paying for a spouse that C is probably, I'm pretty sure C is what I have. Yeah. And if he dies, he won't be covered because that's how the C is set up to not know if you're now divorced or the children that's over 22. Yeah. You so plainly said, they won't get paid for it because old PM don't know that they're 22 or that you're divorced now. Yeah. So things like that are important. I'm just throwing away money. I might as well literally just throw it out there in the woods and let it fly in the air, because that's what's happening when you lack knowledge.
Well, the reason why I like helping people from our culture is because a lot of times the information it's simple information, but sometimes it seems so complex. And so putting it into our language makes a huge impact. I know it makes a huge impact on me when I'm educating myself, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I saw just being around a lot of federal employees in the DMV was all these people have money in Prince George's County, Montgomery County, but they're not building wealth. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it's like, you can make, 120, 150, 170, whatever it is you're making. But if you're not putting that money to work for yourself, then it's all for naught. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. And that's unfortunate because, we haven't had these type of opportunities a lot of times. One, because we don't have a whole lot of business owners who can hire people. Right. You know what I'm saying? So the federal government is hiring at scale like that for us. Right. And so we have to take that money, make it, and then invest it, like you're doing, invested in your son so he can become an entrepreneur. And then now he can hire 10 other people from the culture. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. And so I love what you're doing. I love how you're taking the knowledge and putting it to work, right? And it's not falling on deaf ears.
Yeah, well, listen, I love that you're giving it in practicality. That's what helps.
When it comes to your TSP, how do you feel about the way you have it invested?
Well, you led me into stop being so stuck in just one alphabet.
Yeah.
So
what alphabet was that?
I think it was G. I was stuck in. And then you, and to be honest, I hadn't looked at it anymore since we said it. Okay. Where you advise would be the most beneficial. Yeah. So I left it there and I need to go look at it again because we might need to change it a little bit. but I felt better about the knowledge you gave of, you gotta, come on, you gotta take some risk. You just can't stay stuck. I mean, any wealthy person have taken risks.
For sure.
So, especially a first generation, you have to. So, I felt grown up. I felt like a grown woman. Take some risks, for crying out loud. And so that was the start of me being nudged to even do some other things. I did some other things with AT&T. I did some, did some other stocks. I wouldn't have done it if we hadn't have had that conversation, and you hadn't have been so direct about, this is serious. This is for your child's future. This is, for the betterment of yourself. And so, again, the practicality in conversations of legacy wealth. I just think it's a necessary imperative that has to happen.
It has to. Absolutely. It has to. I mean, because these formulas have been going on for years. Like, we have something at Fed Legacy we call your financial house, right? And your financial house is basically 3 buckets of money you need to have, for sure.
Okay.
You need to have your foundation, which is money that's protected, right? That money, you might say, look, no matter what, I'm leaving X amount of dollars to my son, right? Or I need X amount of dollars for my long-term health care, right? That money goes in the foundation. Then you have your walls, which is just like the walls in your house, right? It's insulation, right? And that insulation is from taxes and inflation, right? And then when you mention the alphabet, the G fund, typically in the G fund, you're not getting that much. You're getting maybe 1 to 3%, right? And even on the website, TSP website, it says, be warned that having your money in this account you might lose buying power due to inflation, right? And so inflation over the last 100 years, as of this video, was at 3.27 per year average, right? So if you have your money in the G fund, you're losing buying power every year, right? And so you want to make sure you have money that is growing and is outpacing inflation, so you're not a victim of going to the grocery store with your $100 and you're only getting 1 bag of groceries, right? Now, you ain't lost nothing in the market, but you lost buying power, right? And so so you have that. Then you have your roof. The roof of the house takes on the most exposure. You get hail damage, wind damage, all that type of stuff. So you have to replace that often. But that is the stocks, right? And the stocks are the aspect of, or the equity accounts, stocks or equity or index funds, right? And that's what in the TSP, that's the C fund, the S fund, and the I fund. And so you want to have some risk, right? You have to take the appropriate amount of risk. And we have a whole formula we go through for that, but you want to make sure you have money in all 3 of those accounts.
Yes.
That way it likens the fact that you won't run out of money because your money is constantly growing. Okay. And you have the things that are important to you taking care of too. Yes. That helps you from an emotional state to know I can have peace of mind. You know what I'm saying? Yes. And so that's how we try to structure it, and that's what we are doing for you.
Yes. And I appreciate it.
Yeah. No problem. In what area do you feel like you've gotten the most help from Fed Legacy?
Well, again, every area is practical. Okay. Everything you provide in any area of knowledge for all the different elements of my retirement, specifically TSP. My benefit is I understand it when you give it.
Yeah.
And then you'll always say, "You have any questions? Any questions?" Then you repeat it. So it's a big help that you provide practicality.
And what would have happened if you never found Fed Legacy?
I shudder to think about that. It would be sad.
Yeah.
It would be sad. I would not have been able to even take lump sums out because nothing would have been there for what I felt like was an emergency after I got divorced.
Okay.
So although I regret taking it out, but it was there.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
If I hadn't have met you, it would not have been there.
As an African American woman who works in the federal government and been in the government since the 80s, what are some of the obstacles that you faced, even within the workforce, right? And what are some of the opportunities that you see for yourself?
So the obstacles was not knowing.
Okay.
So you providing practical ways that I can get ahead as an African American woman working for the government. You gave me tools to put in place. And the benefit that I see is because I know how to do it, I'm doing it and I can pass it on. I have passed it on to quite a few girlfriends who didn't know either. Just didn't know. So the fact that, you know, rather than just kind of talking about what can be done, we actually, you know, we have the tools now to walk in it and do it. And we can pass it on to others and then we can see the fruition of it. So you have created conditions for us to flourish. And that's what's happening.
And what I love is like what you're talking about is that generational wealth isn't just money. It's the thought process and the habits that you instilled in your son. Like going to collect the rent. You know, diving into what his passion is at a young age. Helping him understand money. Passing that on to your girlfriends. Even the ability to share information amongst other people. All those things are generational wealth to me. It don't matter how much you got. If you teach your kids how to think about money the right way, you know, you might have had your struggles, whatever, fine. You know, but if you're teaching them how to think, you know, that's generational wealth to me.
Exactly, because I didn't have that in my household. I don't know many friends like that had it in their household. But just in our culture, you know, because of, you know, previous, you know, how things were years ago, they just gave us what they could.
Which brings me to something that I'm glad you brought up. You know, I talk a lot about life insurance, right? And we were having a small talk before we started shooting this. And you were talking about your mom and her life insurance policy that she has, right?
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
Okay. So I'm going to name the company. My mother's with State Farm, been with State Farm for over 40 years. Has, I don't know, anywhere between $5,000 and maybe $8,000 worth of insurance. And she pays like $76 a month for that little bit of amount of insurance. And so I was asking you, is it too late for us to, you know, try to get her some insurance somewhere else? Because she's paying all that money. And I may be kind of exaggerating the number. It may not even be 5,000. I know it was whatever that number was, it was enough to make me say, you have got to be kidding me. $76 for this amount?
And so that's like, I'm glad you brought it up because that's a very common thing and was one of my motivations for even building Fed Legacy, right?
Really?
Because there's something called industrial life policies or burial policies, right? And so what I experienced, you know, especially when I first started out, was you run into a lot of older African Americans, right? Who would say, yeah, I have this policy. It's just enough to bury me, right? And they're like, yeah, I bought it from the insurance guy. He used to come and collect premiums, you know, all the time from the house, right? And everybody knew that. It didn't matter if you grew up in Seattle, Washington, if you grew up in Mississippi, if you grew up in Georgia, DC, it didn't matter where you were. As a Black person, everybody had that experience, right? In that generation. And, you know, what come to find out, those insurance policies were like 10,000 and below, right? And this person was selling those insurance policies all the time. And so what that did was it put a belief in a lot of African Americans that, well, I just need enough insurance to bury me, right? Where the people that were across town, that was not their language. Their language was, oh, how much more insurance can I get, right? Or, like there was no limit because they knew like, all right, I'm programmed to build wealth. Whereas we were programmed to I just need enough to bury me, almost in a scarcity mindset.
Right.
So that was the one penalty, right? And that's the huge penalty, right? When you program somebody to think small, think in scarcity, then on top of that, they were charging premiums that were above and beyond what other communities were paying. And so there was a whole systematic thing.
Right.
And there was a lawsuit that came out, when you can Google all of that, where a lot of these big companies were sued because they were practicing those practices.
Gotcha.
Which was systematically going into these neighborhoods, sending life insurance agents in there, pretending to be friends,
right,
stealing out of our community.
Exactly.
And so one of the things with Fed Legacy is we're changing the way people think. Our niche is the federal employees because the federal employees, to me, are near and dear to me. Growing up in the DMV, so many of my mom's and dad's friends were federal employees. So many of my friends' parents were federal employees. And we, like I said, we have the opportunity with the right knowledge to take this money that we're generating, you know, from the federal government and transfer that into big wealth later on down the line.
Yes.
Right? And
yes.
so I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about the work we've been doing for the last 14 years because you're starting to see the fruits of it.
Yes.
And which is so cool, you
Yeah,
know, to be able to like see people who are making good money, be able to, you know, send their kids across seas to get information. Like, hey, go spend a summer here, right?
Yes.
Like I was just talking to a client. He was like, yeah, my daughter just spent her last school year in Japan. She's in Cornell, right? You got to have money to have your kid go to Cornell, right?
Yes.
And so, you know, but then what do you think she's going to do when she gets out of school, right? It's a young lady, African-American, at Cornell right now, spending the summer in Japan. She's going to be a bad somebody, right? And so like through cultivating what we have as African-Americans in the federal government, using the access that we have, right? Like you starting boards within the federal government, right? Like using the access we have and the ability to organize.
Yeah.
Which you did, which I think is a phenomenal thing, to organize around a solution that you want to create. To me, that's legacy. And for your son to see that, and then the people that you impact to see that as well. And then for you to give others the game on, like, here's how you organize and solve problems. I think it's amazing, right? And because that's that abundance mentality that we as African Americans should have. We're dope.
You know, I was able to take it to his high school as well.
You did?
Remember what used to be called PTA?
Yeah.
Well, now it's PTSO, Parent Teacher Student Organizations. I'm the president of it.
Oh, yeah.
I started out being a substitute teacher on Fridays when I'm off from CDC. And I told the principal, because now we've created a relationship, I can help more as the president of the PTSO. So I've managed to partner with Lowe's and got them workout equipment and what have you. But more so than that, I'm becoming friends with the students.
Gotcha.
And so the goal is to try to get mentorship to those kids who most of them are kind of raising themselves. And try to get them to thinking differently, and hopefully can influence their parents to come to some legacy workshops type things. You know what I'm thinking. So I'm trying to get it in my community as well.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Changing the way people think, you can make a huge difference.
Exactly.
So that's awesome. So Rose, you talk a lot about what you're doing for your son's school and the youth and things like that. What are some of the things you think they can do to be able to build what you've built?
Okay. So I'll start with this. And it was something actually my mother did do with me. And that was teach me tithes and offering. That was my responsibility from 5 years old. So if she gave me $1, she taught me that 10 of it belongs to God. And then I should give God whatever else I want to give him for my offering. But 10% belongs to him. So I did raise my son in that mentality of you give to God, you save, and I'm not going to tell you how much, but put something away. So at any time I come to you, you show me what you've put away. And sometimes it's 2, 3, sometimes 5. It's never 20. But you know, the thing is, he has a practice of putting something to the side. That is a practice. So his responsibility in the money part, I'm proud that it has stuck because it's always what are you going to give God and what did you save? You know, and then what are you going to give to others? So, so he's in that frame of mind to give to God, to save, and then and to help others. So that responsibility has stuck with him. And also, when it comes to his studies, I just trained him that it's just his responsibility. You know, I used to do homework with him up until he was about in 6th grade. Then he wanted the responsibility of his own. He didn't want to be my baby anymore. So he take pride into his part, all the way down to things in the home for chores. That's his part. And I'm glad that I did that early on, because that shows he understands how important his part is to even make our family work. You know, he shuts down the house every night.
Oh, wow.
He makes sure that the alarm is on. He makes sure that, you know, lights are out and certain lights are on. And so, you know, I find too that he wants discipline. So I could not understand why kids used to like to come over my house so much, because I'm the older parent, I'm the more disciplined parent.
Yeah.
Kids want to be disciplined. They want to be directed. They really do.
Yeah.
And so from praying to his responsibilities, when everyone come over, everyone just line up with whatever his responsibility is, and finding out, early on that kids need that and want that, I think it has made a big, big difference.
Awesome.
So I'm hopeful to make that kind of impact in the school on a more consistent base.
Yeah, because then you create this culture amongst the youth that they're ready. You create some soldiers.
Yeah, the school allowed me to be in charge of concession stands at least 4 times a year.
Yeah.
So many kids want to come be with me. So I'm trying to create teams now so everyone can kind of know. But the idea is I'm trying to woo them in, so they can really kind of sit at the feet of those who know, how to lead, guide, and direct. And they can take it home to their parents if I can't get their parents at the meetings.
Yep.
And get the kids. And the kids are really smart.
Yep. It's good that they have the glass half empty type of mentality.
Exactly.
Right? It's like knowing it all. They open to more coming in. And it's great because, sometimes it's like this generation is lost. And I always push back on people that said, I'm like, that's just lazy thinking. You're just not trying to take responsibility for your impact. Because it's
about to say,
if this generation lazy, what you doing? What you do yesterday? What you doing? What's on your schedule today?
Exactly.
To change that.
Exactly.
Right? And because I'm of the belief the world is always evolving based on the impact that I'm trying to bring.
Yes.
Right? It's my responsibility. I'm no longer a child.
Right.
Right. As adults, as a man, it's my responsibility to help create the world that I want to live in.
Exactly.
And so for you're doing that. And the kids are responding.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The TikTok generation, all these, like that same generation is responding to the discipline.
Yep.
Open to the opportunity. Open to working the concession stands, like you said. Listening.
Helping with the Family Fall Festival. Yeah. What can I do? What can I do? I have 40 volunteers. What can I do? What can I do?
Right.
And you better believe I try to create stuff on the spot.
Yeah,
because they want something to do.
Right. So you're taking responsibility and creating within your circle the next generation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then they pass on. So it's just beautiful to hear that you're doing that. I love that you're active.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're pouring into that next generation.
Yeah.
I love the stuff you're doing, Rose.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I love the stuff you're doing.
That's it.
Keep on keeping on.
I will.
Really.
I will. We'll do it together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.